There we are. We're live. I'm going to give everybody a second to join us here. So just sit tight. I see 0 people in the room. I want to make sure that room fills up. There we go. There's people coming in. Hi, people. So if you joined us for panel 3 and you weren't in panel 2 and 1, there's a chat room on the right-hand side of your screen. Actually, I think I got to point the opposite way. Go in there, type your name, say hello. This is also where you're going to ask questions of our panelists. There we go. Benton Mahaffey. Hello. I'm going to go around the room. Let these panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Michelle. Tell us your name, where you work, what you're up to, and what are your thoughts on, just real quick, what's going on right now.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and join you today. My name is Michelle Van Hifty. I'm the Vice President of Urban Design for the Downtown Austin Alliance. We are in Austin, Texas. We're a public improvement district and a downtown management organization, and we work to create, preserve, and enhance the value and vitality of downtown Austin. We've been navigating this pandemic with a strategy of response, recovery, and resiliency. We are looking forward to perhaps the fall and the holiday season, increasing some opportunities, and working with all of our businesses downtown to try to creatively and safely help them generate some revenue.
Awesome. We'll move around. We'll go to Christian.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christian Fletcher. I'm the Executive Director of the Marble Falls Economic Development Corporation. COVID has actually been pretty kind to our community in terms of where we are and people who have decided to quarantine in our area at their lake homes or their ranchettes. Obviously, we want to be sensitive to the rest of the world that hasn't fared as well, so we're not shouting that news from the mountaintops the way we once were, but we've kind of shifted from recovery mode, which we didn't know what that would look like at all, into trying to reemerge and catalyze some pretty important projects for our community, especially in the downtown area and adjacent to our park space and Lake Marble Falls.
I found my agenda. I had to push refresh. I feel like, the closer I get to 50, the more technologically challenged I become. Claudia, it's up to you. Tell us about yourself.
Well, good morning. I'm Claudia. I'm the Analytics Manager at STR. So an overview of STR, we gather data from hotels, compile it, and create a variety of reports so that they can benchmark the performance against their own concepts, markets, sub-markets, whatnot. And we also track pipeline projects, forward-looking bookings, and a variety of other similar hospitality performance data. The department where I work with, we mainly focus on ad hoc reporting and profitability studies, so more of the detailed department's performance and how that affects the bottom line.
Love the artwork too, by the way.
Oh,
all right,
you.
Jonathan, you're last but not least.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan Horowitz. I'm in Houston, Texas. I have been, I'm a recovering attorney by trade. And about 15 years ago, I got into the restaurant bar business as an owner-operator. And since that time, I've also gotten into commercial real estate associated with Colliers International here in Houston. And I have earlier this year launched my own hospitality consulting company called Convive Hospitality Consulting. And I work with a lot of different restaurant bar concepts and other retail concepts, particularly here in the Houston market, helping them either open or grow, as the case may be, and really have seen a very interesting and difficult year for a lot of my associates, a lot of clients, and a lot of friends in the industry. And I think we've gone from the initial kind of panic mode into how are we going to get through this, and is anybody going to survive, to more of an adaptation mode. I think there are still a lot of challenges ahead, but I think particularly for those that have made it this far and have adapted their business models, they have a decent chance of continuing success and possibly even growing into the future. But we're not out of the woods yet, and it's still a very challenging environment for retail and hospitality in particular.
Well, let's go. I want to start with Claudia. I hope you're okay with that. We just finished the industrial panel, and everything. The industrial people feel like the world is on fire in a good way, and tenants and landlords and everything's going a million miles an hour. So I want to temper that. We're in a pandemic, right? I mean, things aren't perfect right now. So hospitality must be the hardest hit, but I like what Jonathan said. Maybe we're starting to hit something coming up. So just give us an idea where we're at. Austin and nationally.
Well, Austin seems to be ahead of the curve in terms of performance, either for good or for bad. So when things were good, Austin was doing better than the national average. Now that things are bad, then Austin is doing slightly worse than the national average. But in general, it seems like the performance is doing a bit of what we like to say the Nike swoosh. So it was like quite a big drop when it came like March, mostly April. Then there has been a slight upward trend. It's still quite low compared to last year's performance, but it seems like slowly but surely the hospitality industry seems to be finding a way to navigate the waters nowadays, kind of finding new ways to attract either a different clientele or finding other ways to stay somewhat profitable.
Okay, so
can I jump in?
Yeah, go for sure, absolutely.
And I can kind of relate that to the restaurant industry. Can you go to that first slide that I sent you? It's the graph of so this shows revenue for restaurants over the years, and you can see what the black line of 2020 looks like. And this takes it all the way through August. Obviously, a massive precipitous drop at the beginning of the pandemic, and we've seen it jump back up. The point of this slide really is that it is not going to get back to pre-pandemic levels for a while. While we're seeing that uptick again, it's still not. It's not where we need it to be, and it's not allowing most places to be really profitable. So what we're hoping for is that in the future, things will get better enough, whether that's through vaccines or better treatments, or people get more comfortable with going out again. And I'm sure, hotel industry is the same for travel in particular. Until that time, it's going to continue to be challenging economically for restaurants, hotels, hospitality in general.
Right. There's only so much the hotel industry, the hospitality industry can recover just based on tourism itself. Like that's ignoring like the groups, conferences, major events and all that, which was like the main, like the meat and butter for most of these hotels. So that's actually one of the trends that we have seen is like some of the upper tier properties are the ones either having to close or are just not performing at their best because of that. They're just lacking that group business.
Yeah, I would say that some of this data is a little, not this particular graph, but when you talk about restaurants and where they are and how they're performing year over year, at least in Marble Falls, full service restaurants would be down 20 or 25%, and limited service would be up 20 or 25%. So it was flat, but that's not telling the real story here.
Yeah, that was my question. Is if I am a restaurant owner, it's got to be haves and have-nots, right? But if I was let's just put some zeros on here instead of 65 million. Let's say 65,000 was my monthly sales from my restaurant. Would I be at 55,000, or are some restaurants doing well and others are way further down this chart?
Yeah, I think to Christian's point, it's kind of haves and have-nots. We've seen a definite shift, and again, kind of going back a second, we, as I mentioned in the intro, we kind of went from that panic mode to more adaptation mode and survival mode. And the concepts that have been able to adapt to focus on takeout and delivery, selling alcohol to go, which was a change that the governor's office, allowed restaurants to make, more outside dining, more patio dining, and all of those things. If you were able to do that, you're probably doing a little bit better than the curve right now. More higher end, full service, sit down, all inside type restaurants are really just having a significant struggle, and it's for them and those types of concepts. I don't see a significant change. Can we jump to the next slide real quick? Because I think that's will illustrate that point a little bit. The point of this graph is basically, the question is to restaurateurs, if things don't change, right? If we don't have significant improvement and people, don't feel more comfortable going out to eat, how likely is it you're still going to be in business in 6 months? That's the question. And, it was only 60% of full service operators felt like they could be open, in 6 months, and that's not a great number. Limited service, fast casuals and things like that do a lot of takeout, were closer to 70%, feeling like they could be in business 6 months from now if things don't change. And then the last slide I've got, the third one, if you flip to that shows pent-up demand. And this is actually a little bit encouraging, because what this shows is people aren't using restaurants right now the way they want to. You can see in early January, it was pretty equal. Are you using restaurants, as much as you would like? Most people, for the most part, yes. 83% in April said they were, not using restaurants as much as they would like, and that's still, while it's come down a little bit, there's a lot of pent-up demand there. And so what that shows is, if we can get through this, if things start to improve, the demand is there, and people want to be able to go back out. They want to be social. They want to do those things in restaurants. So there's hope. The question is, referring back to the previous slide, the question is, can these businesses survive long enough to get there, and so that they can eventually meet the pent-up demand? And that's a bit of an unknown, where we are right now. It's just, it's a virus. We just don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to put a different lens on this and talk about geography and density. When you look at who the consumers are and where the demand comes from, and which groups of people these businesses rely on in order to generate their revenue, you find that there are subtle differences in urban centers and downtowns versus more suburban or rural areas. There's some unique challenges for downtowns and urban centers. For downtown Austin, we are a major tourism destination for our region. And people flying, typically we would have a lot of traffic coming in from our airport. We would have people coming in for our fall festivals, conventions, football season, and that airport travel is way down. Secondly, we're our region's largest employment center. We are the central business district of Central Texas, and we have 100,000 plus people who are occupying the commercial office buildings Monday through Friday during business hours. And those people spend their money. They buy their lunches. They do their shopping while they're downtown. They help create that revenue for those businesses. So until the office workers return and until the tourism increases, businesses in downtowns are going to continue to struggle. So we're looking for creative ways to call upon the locals. And this time of year in Texas is one of the best times of year to expect people to be outside and active. We have sort of the upside down weather effect that many of the other parts of the country do, where other people were enjoying sitting outside and enjoying the ability to generate revenue outside during the summer. We were hibernating inside the air conditioning because it was 102 every day. Now that we have the fall temperatures, everyone is so happy to be outside and looking forward to being outside for most of the winter season as well. So we're trying to market businesses that are open, helping them to creatively find ways to bring their businesses outside onto the sidewalk or into open spaces adjacent to their front doors. And then in the long term, we're looking at the resiliency of our downtown. Do we maybe need a better retail mix? Do we need more diversity in the hospitality and entertainment and retail opportunities that are provided, so that the next time we have a crisis, we're better able to weather it?
I want to build on that. When you say diversity, what do you mean? Like what types of uses?
So in terms of our ground floor retail goods and services, downtown Austin does have a pretty healthy residential population, and yet we still don't have the amount of residences in downtown where you could say that our downtown is as complete a neighborhood as other parts of Austin. So we may need to look at a strategy that increases our residents and increases the types of goods and services and retail and entertainment venues that people who are in downtown 24/7 might want to have available for them, instead of having the uses focus on daytime office workers and tourists.
Do you want to go through any of your slides real quick while we're talking about downtown?
Sure.
And then Christian, I turned your microphone off because you were feeding back, but I'm going to get to you next, so hang tight. All right.
Go to number 8, please.
Oh, we had that all set up and it didn't stick, did it?
Didn't work.
That's my day.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I love it. It was funny to listen to you talk about getting outside. I'm in Minnesota, state, and we just had a lacrosse tournament in the snow over the weekend. So we're doing the opposite. It's hibernation time.
Yep.
Okay, take it away.
So one of the ways that we've approached this is we've created an economic recovery index. We have been, for the last 7 months, looking closely at what are the indicators, what are the KPIs that we feel like if we track these, if we watch carefully, will begin to indicate something that we can call recovery, or will begin to tell the story of, is it getting better, is it getting worse? So we developed this index. This is on our website, downtownaustin.com, and we're tracking current levels, pre-COVID levels, and then the 2020 lowest point. I will agree with the other panelists in that we've had somewhat of a Nike swoosh shaped, response and recovery. Right now, like I said, this would be our fall festival season. We would be at maximum capacity in downtown, maximum mixed beverage sales, maximum spending. You'd see the hotels completely full. You'd see the restaurants with lots of wait times, and it's just not there. We have seen an uptick in people wanting to come downtown for entertainment and to be part of being near people, but we're also seeing a little bit of a plateauing. So it seems like once we got over the summer spike of cases, there was an increase once the cooler fall temperatures hit, and now it seems like we're plateauing a little bit. And if you go to our website, each one of these little dots, the yellow, blue, and red dots, will open up a trending graph to show you how each of these indicators are progressing.
Will you do me a favor and make one of these for every major metropolitan city? This is just fantastic. It's so visually easy to follow, right? And you update it once a month, or it says regular basis. So as you get reports in, I suppose you update.
Yeah, I would say that we attempt a rhythm of at least once a month. Actually, this slide is a tad bit old because we just updated the index yesterday. We added new indicators and we refreshed some of the numbers with more recent data sets. Yeah. But sometimes we update it weekly. Sometimes one data point will sit stagnant for a couple of weeks because it hasn't changed.
Right. Okay, we got to get to Christian because I want to know what's going on in Marble Falls. Do you want to bring your slides up?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Great, thank you. Certainly on a much smaller scale than what downtown Austin looks like. in terms of size, but also in terms of the depth of the data. Just want to run through a couple things here. Our growth has been pretty predictable out here. It's varied between 1.5% and maybe 8 or 9%. So we're not growing as quickly as the I-35 corridor suburbs are, but it's been pretty predictable until COVID hit, obviously. And you see the impacts there with the closures of non-essential businesses and what that did. But the blue bars are what Marble Falls has been doing, and the red line is what the state of Texas as a whole is doing. So we've been performing better than the state as a whole. Overall, this is sales tax collections. And then speaking specifically of our downtown area, again, totally different scale, but the downtown core is our Main Street area, 2 blocks, and that is in our top 5 sales tax generators in the community. And you see what happened in March and April as these non-essential businesses were shut down entirely. And so that basically is reflecting to-go food and beverage service and really nothing else. But since that time, May through August, which is the most current data that we have, has been the best 4-month stretch that our downtown core area has ever had. So again, we're seeing more and more people come out here to quarantine in lake houses or ranchettes and coming to Marble Falls, and then shifting to hotels, again, performing better than the state as a whole, very much a V-shaped recovery. And we've been about 50 percentage points better than the state as a whole in terms of our hotel receipts year over year. So we're very lucky in that regard.
That's interesting. So are people still quarantining out in cabins, or are they coming back to downtown?
Well, cabins out this way tend to be multi-million-dollar lake homes, so it's not as painful as it sounds to quarantine out in the exurbs, I guess is really the most accurate depiction of what we are. But yeah, I mean it's a less densely populated area. People can spread out. You don't come into contact with as many people. It's just it feels safer, and the numbers reflect that as well in terms of our COVID cases and hospitalizations and everything else.
I live in an exurb in a lake area, and it's exactly the same thing, but the cases are starting to catch up, which is a little disconcerting. I suppose they have to eventually, right? That's how this all works. All right, we've got a couple minutes left. I'm just going to throw this out to everybody as soon as I can move the slides down. There we all are. Jonathan, if you're still with us, can't see your face, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me? I'm still here. I'm still here.
So just maybe we'll go around the horn. Last thoughts. I know this panel went by really fast, but what did we miss that we didn't talk about? And maybe real quick, when do you think we get out of it? I have my own opinion, but I want to hear yours. So let's go to Michelle, and I'm going to work the same way we did intros.
I think I'd like to highlight that one of the spaces that we operate in to help our business owners and our property owners is the intersection of how to generate revenue, how to be prosperous, and then the public policies and the infrastructure that enable that prosperity. And this pandemic has proven very difficult for us in Austin because it's exposed some issues, some problems, some weaknesses that we had in terms of policies and infrastructure that when times are good, you don't necessarily realize. So we've had to pivot in terms of policies and programs to help businesses be nimble and creative. And sometimes you need a license agreement, and sometimes you need a permit. And sometimes there's police and fire and code regulations that have to be complied with. And this pandemic has really proven an opportunity to look at some of those policies and programs and regulations and maybe relax some of them or help them be more streamlined, reduce the time and the cost that's needed, because a business doesn't have 6 to 9 months, or some period of time to go wait on a permit if they want to pivot their business in a way that they need it right now. So we've been working very closely with the city of Austin, with Travis County, with many of the different nonprofits that we partner with typically, like our chambers of commerce. And we've got one particular program called Shop the Block, where we are focusing on one particular block in downtown Austin, we were able to get the city to provide one permit to allow all of the businesses on the block to bring their business out onto the sidewalk. So we're activating it with new tables and chairs. We've got socially distanced marking on the sidewalks, and we hope to be able to bring in like food trucks and music while still adhering to the state's orders, which is no public gatherings, with greater than 10 people at a time, and still in a way that makes people feel safe, like they can come out and have fun and help some of these businesses survive this time.
That sounds fantastic. Good luck with that. I think it sounds like a street fair waiting to happen as soon as we can get rid of the masks and stuff. Christian, over to you.
I would just say that it's only a matter of time before Austin has a really strong comeback. And so I think that some of our levels will probably normalize a little bit. We won't see quite the gains that we have, but I think we may be at kind of a new baseline in terms of the residential activity that we're seeing these days and things that had been a little quiet for us before. Now we have people looking for multifamily, looking for single family that has not been our bread and butter historically. So I think it'll be a new baseline for us going forward, but I think it'll probably temper a little bit as Austin and San Antonio come back.
Jonathan, can you hear us? All right,
yes.
fire away.
Can you? Yeah, thank you. Specifically with regard to the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry, pre-pandemic, I think we were seeing a bit of a shift, particularly with restaurants getting smaller, focusing more on takeout, more on the value proposition, and I think the entire pandemic has really accelerated that process. So we're seeing a pretty seismic shift in the entire industry to things that are more convenient, faster, focused more on technology. I think restaurants that have been able to adapt to newer technologies are really seeing some of the benefits now, and that will continue in the future. I think it's really going to change the footprint of restaurants going forward. I think that real estate selections are going to be very different. There'll be smaller footprints. People are looking for outdoor spaces to dine in. Drive-throughs are becoming even more of a premium than they were in the past. So there's been a lot of changes. And I think, obviously the sooner we can get past this, the sooner we can start meeting that pent-up demand. I will say that as one of the largest private industries in the country that employs the second largest number of people in the country for private employment, we may really need to see some more government activity, some more stimulus. As you saw in that graph earlier, a lot of people don't believe they're going to be around in 6 months if things don't change. And if things really don't change, they're going to need even more assistance going forward just to stay afloat, to hopefully be able to meet that demand later in the future. So a lot of unknowns right now. People are still a little bit running scared. It's a tough business to begin with, and this has just made it even tougher. So we're hopeful, but it's cautious optimism at this point.
I hear you on the stimulus. The hospitality, restaurant, retail, these industries employ a lot of people. And if we can't get back to full steam, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Claudia, you got the crystal ball. I realize stats people are like, nah, we can't see into the future. But you all are close to the data. Tell us more. Tell us when we get better. Somebody in the chat room, you got a minute and a half to do all this. Asked about occupancy rates in the core district as well.
It's going to take a while to recover. I agree with what Jonathan said about being cautiously optimistic. We know that the hospitality industry can recover. It's done it before, and we are sure it's going to do it again. It might not. The recovery is not going to come in as soon as we would like it to. It might take a couple of years, perhaps, depending on how COVID gets controlled. But we have seen some of the temporary closures in hotels in Texas and whatnot. They're slowly getting back into the market. So to answer the question about occupancy rates, currently the Austin market is around 45%. So half of the capacity. So there's still a few closures in there, like I said. pipeline projects have also slowed down. A lot of these have moved into planning instead of final planning. So they're kind of like bringing it back down a little bit. So it all depends on many other factors like the stimulus and whatnot. It all comes down to resiliency, creativity, and power in numbers when it comes to influencing legislation and whatnot.
I got to cut us short. I'm telling you guys, I'll put a marker in the sand right now. We're going to have a vaccine for frontline workers in December. And then things are going to turn around. When we do this conference next year, we're all going to be telling happy stories about how, things were bad before, but now we're doing so great. Thank you all. Everybody that's watching online, I put the lobby in there. I hope that I get into this next panel in time enough for the technology to work. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
It's time.
Bye.